Eli had always preferred the quiet life. As a human engineer, he spent most of his time working with machines, solving problems, and thinking about new ways to make things better. He never really thought much about the other species in the galaxy, let alone interacting with them. He was just happy doing his job. But everything changed when he was sent to work on an alien space station, far from Earth. The station was massive, filled with beings from all corners of the galaxy. It was a place where cultures collided, where different worlds met, and where technology advanced at a pace humans could only dream of. It was meant to be a project of peace, a collaboration between species to improve life across the stars. But Eli wasn't so sure about all that. All he cared about was fixing the machines. Then he met Lyra. Lyra was an alien princess, and like many of the other beings on the station, she wasn't human. She was tall, with striking features, glowing skin, large eyes, and an almost ethereal presence that made everyone take notice. Eli was immediately aware of her. He had heard about her before. She was known for her intelligence, her sharp mind, and her strange ability to inspire both fear and admiration in those around her. But there was something else about her. Something that Eli couldn't quite put his finger on. Their first meeting was anything but ordinary. Eli was standing in the main corridor looking over a piece of machinery that had malfunctioned during an intergalactic transmission. He was trying to figure out what had gone wrong when he suddenly felt someone standing too close to him. He looked up, and there she was, Lyra, standing a little too close for comfort. "Do you need help?" she asked, her voice smooth and calming. It wasn't a voice that commanded, but one that invited curiosity. It was clear she had no problem getting close to people. A little too close for Eli's liking, but he tried not to let it show. No, I'm fine," Eli replied, trying to hide his discomfort. He was used to working alone, and the personal space he needed to focus on his work was important to him. But Lyra didn't move. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, studying him with intense interest. "You seem tense," she said with a smile, her eyes not leaving his. There was something about her that made Eli uneasy. Maybe it was how confident she was, or maybe it was the way she looked at him, like she could read his thoughts. He had never been good at keeping his thoughts to himself. "I'm just trying to figure out this piece of equipment," Eli said, hoping to get back to work. But Lyra didn't move away. She stayed there, standing far too close for his liking, her presence almost overwhelming. "You know," Lyra began, her voice soft but direct, "my people are used to being close to one another. We don't have the same concept of personal space as you do." She paused, her gaze flicking over the machine. "Perhaps you should try being more open." Eli was taken aback. What did she mean by that? Was she suggesting that he was closed off? He didn't want to be rude, but he wasn't sure how to respond. He shifted awkwardly, hoping she would get the hint and move away. But she didn't. She just continued to stand there as if nothing was wrong. "I'm not used to this," Eli admitted, feeling his discomfort grow. "Humans, we like our space." Lyra's smile softened, and she finally stepped back just a little, though she was still within arm's reach. "I see," she said quietly, her tone thoughtful. "Perhaps I overstepped. I don't mean to make you uncomfortable." Eli felt a wave of guilt wash over him. She wasn't being malicious, just different. He hadn't expected her to understand, but she seemed to be genuinely trying to respect his boundaries. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that something about her presence was too much. "Thank you," Eli said, his voice a little softer now. "It's just a bit overwhelming." Lyra nodded. "I understand, but I hope you don't mind my curiosity. Humans are fascinating to me. I've always wanted to understand more about your people." She smiled again, and this time it felt less intense. There was something sincere about it. "I'll let you get back to your work," she said before turning to leave. But then, she stopped and looked back over her shoulder. "If you ever want to talk, I'll be around." And with that, she walked away, leaving Eli standing in the corridor, still trying to figure out what had just happened. He wasn't sure if he should be relieved or annoyed. But one thing was certain. He couldn't get the image of her out of his mind. Eli tried to focus on his work, but his thoughts kept wandering back to Lyra. She was different from anyone he had ever met. And it wasn't just her alien nature. It was the way she made him feel, both intrigued and uncomfortable at the same time. As days passed, Lyra kept appearing, always a little too close. She would stand near him while he worked, always watching, always asking questions. And though Eli tried to maintain his distance, he couldn't deny that there was something magnetic about her. Every time she stood close, her presence seemed to fill the space, pushing his discomfort aside. She was always just a little too close, and yet, every time she did, it made him wonder. What was it about her that kept drawing him in? The days passed, and Eli couldn't seem to shake the feeling that something had changed. Lyra's constant presence on the station was like a shadow that never left him. She was always near him, always close. At first, it was just small things, standing a little, too close during their brief conversations, lingering nearby while he worked and sitting beside him during meals. But soon it became clear that Lyra wasn't just interested in his skills as an engineer. She was fascinated by him as a person. Eli tried to ignore it, but it wasn't easy. Every time he looked up, there she was, watching him, studying him, with those big, intense eyes. It was as if she was trying to understand him, to figure him out, and, for some strange reason, it made him uncomfortable. Humans liked their space. It was part of who they were, but Lyra didn't seem to understand that. One evening, after a long day of repairs, Eli decided to take a break. He walked down the hall, hoping to find a quiet place where he could think. But, as usual, Lyra appeared from around a corner just as he thought he might finally be alone. "Eli," she greeted him, her voice calm and friendly. She was smiling, though there was something in her expression that made Eli feel like she already knew what he was thinking. "Hey, Lyra," Eli replied, trying to sound normal, though he felt his heart race a little. He wasn't used to her, showing up all the time. "What's up?" "I thought you might like some company," she said, stepping closer to him, too close. Again. Eli took a step back instinctively, trying to put some space between them, but Lyra didn't seem to notice. Or maybe she just didn't care. She was standing so close now that he could feel the warmth of her body, could hear the soft rustling of her clothes as she moved. It was as if she was always just one step away from touching him, and it made him uneasy no matter how hard he tried to hide it. I think I need some time alone," Eli said, his voice a little stiff. He didn't want to be rude, but he wasn't sure how to handle this constant closeness. Lyra paused for a moment, her smile faltering slightly. She seemed to think it over before speaking again. "I don't mean to make you uncomfortable, Eli," she said softly. "It's just, I find your presence calming, and I'm not used to being so far away from someone I care about." Eli blinked, taken aback by the sudden vulnerability in her voice. He wasn't sure what to say. "Care about?" he repeated, his words a little hesitant. Lyra nodded, her expression softening. "Yes, in my culture we don't shy away from closeness. It's how we connect with others. But I see now that it's different for you." Eli wasn't sure how to respond. He didn't know what to think about her words. Part of him wanted to retreat, to put up walls between them. He wasn't used to this kind of attention, especially not from someone so different. But another part of him, something he couldn't quite explain, wanted to stay. He felt a strange pull toward her, like he was drawn to something he couldn't understand. I don't know what to say," Eli admitted. He ran a hand through his hair, trying to gather his thoughts. "I'm not used to being so close to anyone. I mean, you're always right there, and I'm just not like that. Humans, we like our space." "I understand," Lyra said, her voice gentle. "I'm sorry if I made you feel trapped. That's not my intention." Eli looked at her, unsure of how to feel. On one hand, he appreciated her honesty. She wasn't trying to pressure him, but on the other hand, her presence was starting to feel like something he couldn't avoid, no matter How hard he tried. I don't want to hurt your feelings, Eli said after a long pause, but I need some time to think. I can't keep up with this closeness all the time. Lyra didn't say anything at first. She simply nodded, her face unreadable. But then she spoke again, her voice soft but firm. I won't force you, Eli. But I hope you know that I'm not doing this because I want something from you. I just want to be near you, to understand you. You're different from anyone I've met. And I find that interesting. Eli felt a knot tighten in his stomach. It was hard to explain, but something about her words hit him harder than he expected. He had never been the type to open up to others, especially not to someone from another world. But with Lyra, it was different. Her words weren't just polite. They were genuine, and for some reason that made him feel both uncomfortable and understood at the same time. I just don't know what to do with all this, Eli confessed. I've never had any. The following days were filled with tension for Eli. He found himself caught between his desire for space and the growing curiosity he felt toward Lyra. After their last conversation, he had tried to maintain distance, but she continued to show up in his life, always just a little too close for comfort. Yet this time there was something different in the way she interacted with him. It was almost as if she was giving him space, but still wanting to be near. One evening, after a long day of repairs, Eli was once again walking the corridors of the station. He was heading to his quarters, eager to unwind, when he heard Lyra's voice calling out to him. Eli, wait, she called. He turned to see her standing a few feet away, her expression warm and inviting. She wasn't standing too close this time, which for some reason made Eli feel relieved. Hey, Lyra, he greeted her, his voice a bit more relaxed than it had been before. He had grown used to her presence, even if it still felt overwhelming at times. I wanted to invite you to something, she said, her voice carrying a note of excitement. It's an important tradition in my culture, and I think it might help you understand us a little better. Eli raised an eyebrow, unsure of what she was talking about. What kind of tradition? Lyra smiled, stepping closer, but not too close. It's a bonding ceremony, a way for us to connect, without words or barriers. You don't have to say anything, you just share space. I think it will help you see things from my perspective. Eli wasn't sure what to expect, but he found himself intrigued. Okay, sure. What do I need to do? Lyra's smile widened. Nothing, just come with me. It's not complicated, I promise. She led him down a series of winding corridors, past sections of the station he hadn't yet explored. Eventually, they arrived at a large open chamber. The room was dimly lit by soft, warm lights that bathed the walls in a calming glow. In the center of the room was a low platform, covered in soft cushions, and around it were several members of Lyra's species, all sitting quietly. Eli felt a slight nervousness in his chest as he entered the room. He wasn't sure what he was getting himself into, but there was something about Lyra's calm demeanor that made him feel safe. As he entered the room, a few of the alien beings nodded at him in greeting, but they didn't speak. They simply sat in silence. Lyra turned to him with a gentle smile. Just sit with me. It's about being close without any words, don't worry. It's a peaceful tradition. Eli nodded, still uncertain, but willing to trust her. He sat down beside her on one of the cushions. The air in the room was thick with silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was a strange kind of calm that Eli hadn't experienced before. He had always been someone who filled silence with words, with noise. But here, surrounded by Lyra's people, there was no need for words. They simply existed together. For a while, Eli found it hard to relax. His mind kept racing, thinking about everything. His work, the mission, the station, his life back on Earth. But then something shifted. He began to feel the presence of the others around him, not in a way that made him uncomfortable, but in a way that made him feel connected. The quiet was no longer deafening, it was soothing. Lyra sat close to him, but not too close. She had positioned herself so that they were near, but still respectful of each other's space. The peaceful atmosphere made it easier for Eli to forget his earlier unease. He began to notice the soft hum of the station, the gentle pulse of energy that flowed through the walls. It felt like everything in the room was in sync, as if time itself had slowed down. "This is what we do." Lyra's voice broke the silence, soft and calm. "We share this space, this energy. It helps us bond, to understand each other without needing to speak." Eli looked at her, still unsure of what she meant, but he felt a deeper connection to her than ever before. She was right. There was something peaceful about being in close proximity to someone without the need for constant conversation or gestures. It was as if they were communicating on a different level, one that didn't rely on words at all. "I didn't realize how powerful silence could be," Eli said quietly, his voice almost a whisper. Lyra smiled, her eyes softening. "Sometimes, silence is all we need to truly understand someone." As the ceremony continued, Eli found himself relaxing more and more. The tension he had carried for days slowly melted away, replaced by a feeling of peace and connection that he couldn't explain. He had always thought that being alone was the only way he could truly think and focus. But now, with Lyra sitting beside him, he felt strangely at ease. He had never been in a room so still, so full of quiet energy. The other beings around them seemed to exude the same calm, as if they were all part of something larger, something that transcended individual concerns. Eli had never experienced anything like it. It was unlike anything he had ever known. After what felt like hours, the ceremony came to an end. Lyra stood up and Eli followed suit, feeling a bit unsteady on his feet after sitting so still for so long. As they left the chamber, Lyra turned to him with a smile. "How do you feel?" she asked, her voice gentle. Eli paused for a moment, thinking about the experience. He had never been so close to anyone without feeling overwhelmed. But now, something had changed. He felt different. There was a calmness in him that hadn't been there before. "I feel better," Eli admitted. "Like I don't need to fight the closeness anymore." Lyra's smile widened. "I'm glad you feel that." "Wait, Eli, I knew you would." As they walked back to the main corridor, Eli couldn't help but think about how much he had learned in just a short time. He had come to the station expecting to fix machines and go home. But now, he was starting to understand something much deeper. Lyra's people didn't just understand technology, they understood connection. And for the first time in his life, Eli felt like he was beginning to understand it too. The days after the bonding ceremony were strange for Eli. He wasn't sure what had changed, but he couldn't deny that he felt different. The peace he had experienced during the ceremony lingered in his thoughts, like a gentle hum. For the first time in a long while, he felt at ease, but there was still a part of him that hesitated to let go completely, to embrace the closeness Lyra offered so freely. Lyra, however, seemed to have no such reservations. She continued to be near him, always within arm's reach, yet in a way that wasn't forceful. It was as if she had learned to give him space, yet still remained present in his life. Eli found himself growing more comfortable with her presence, even if it felt overwhelming at times. He didn't fully understand it, but there was something about her that made him want to stay close too. One afternoon, Eli was working on a piece of equipment in the lab when he felt the familiar presence of Lyra at his side. She stood there, not too close, but close enough that Eli couldn't ignore her. She had a way of being near without intruding, a balance that was hard to find. "Everything going well?" she asked, her voice soft but genuine. Eli looked up from his work and nodded. "Yeah, just working through a few issues with this sensor. It's tricky, but I think I'm close to fixing it." Lyra smiled, her eyes never leaving him. "I believe in you. You're one of the most talented humans I've ever met." Eli felt a warmth spread through him at her words. He wasn't used to such praise, especially from someone like her. But it wasn't just the compliment that caught him off guard. It was the way she said it, like she truly believed in him. "Thanks," he said, feeling a little shy. "I'm just doing my job. "You're doing more than that," she replied. "You're making a difference here, Eli. You're helping my people in ways we could never do on our own." Her words lingered in the air, and for a moment Eli found himself lost in her gaze. There was something in her eyes, something deeper than admiration or respect. It was a connection, something that tied them together in a way Eli hadn't expected. It made him feel seen, in a way that was both comforting and unsettling. Before he could respond, Lyra stepped closer, just enough to close the gap between them. Eli stiffened instinctively, but this time, it wasn't the same feeling of discomfort he had once felt. Instead, there was a sense of calm that washed over him, as if the boundary between them had already been crossed in ways he hadn't realized. "I know this might be difficult for you," Lyra said, her voice quieter now. "But I hope you understand that this closeness isn't something I'm forcing. It's just how I am. It's how my people connect with those they care about." Eli hesitated, unsure of what to say. He had been so focused on his own need for space, for distance, that he hadn't considered how it might feel for Lyra to be constantly pushed away. She wasn't asking for anything from him. She wasn't demanding his affection or attention. She just wanted to be near him, to share her world with him. "I've been pushing you away, haven't I?" Eli said softly, realizing it as the words left his mouth. Lyra looked at him, her expression unreadable. But then, she smiled, a small, understanding smile that made Eli's heart skip a beat. "It's okay, Eli," she said gently. "I know you need time. I've never wanted to force anything. I just wanted to be close to you. I care about you and I want you to know that." Eli's mind was spinning. He hadn't expected this kind of honesty, especially not from someone as important as Lyra. He had always been the kind of person who kept his emotions locked away, who valued his independence and personal space above all else. But now, with Lyra standing so close, he couldn't deny that something had shifted. He took a deep breath, his hands trembling slightly as he set down the tool he had been holding. It was as if the walls he had built around himself were starting to crumble piece by piece. "I don't know what to say," he admitted, his voice quiet. "I've always been the kind of person who values space, but I don't know, Lyra. I think I'm starting to understand why you need this closeness." Lyra's eyes softened and she reached out, her hand resting gently on his arm. It was the first time she had touched him like that, and it sent a strange shiver down his spine. But it wasn't an uncomfortable feeling. It was something new, something he wasn't used to but was beginning to accept. "You don't have to say anything, Eli," Lyra said, her voice warm and reassuring. "I'm not asking for anything more than what you're willing to give. I just want you to know that I'm here whenever you're ready." For a long moment, Eli stood there unsure of what to do. He felt torn between the need for space and the growing connection he felt with Lyra. But as he looked at her, standing so patiently before him, he realized that the closeness she offered wasn't something to be feared. It wasn't a threat. It was an invitation, a chance for him to open up and connect in a way he never had before. Finally, he nodded, a small but sincere smile spreading across his face. "Okay, I'm ready. I don't know what this will look like, but I'm willing to try." Lyra's smile widened and she stepped back slightly, giving him the space he had asked for. But there was still a connection between them, one that neither of them could deny. It wasn't about words or promises, it was about being present with each other, in the silence and the closeness. As Eli returned to his work, Lyra stayed close by, not intruding, but offering her presence. For the first time in a long while, Eli didn't feel like he was fighting against the world. He felt like he was part of something bigger, something he couldn't yet fully understand, but was ready to explore. The days that followed were different. Eli had felt something shift between him and Lyra, but he couldn't put it into words. The more he spent time with her, the more he found himself drawn to her in ways he hadn't expected. Their conversations, once brief and formal, had deepened. They spoke about their cultures, their fears, and their hopes. He had learned more about Lyra's life and the challenges she faced as a princess, burdened with responsibilities she didn't always want. And in turn, she had come to understand Eli's quiet nature, his love for solitude, and the reasons behind his need for space. But something had changed within him. He had started to see her not just as the princess, the leader of her people, but as someone he deeply cared about. It was more than just admiration for her intelligence or respect for her strength. It was a pull, a connection that went beyond words. One evening, as Eli worked late in the lab, Lyra appeared at the door. This time she didn't stand too close, but she didn't keep her distance either. She simply leaned against the doorframe, watching him with a soft smile. "You've been working for hours," she said, her voice light. "Don't you ever get tired?" Eli looked up from his work, meeting her gaze. There was something in her eyes, a warmth, a gentleness that made him pause. He had spent so much time focusing on his tasks, on the technicalities of the station, that he hadn't realized how much he missed simply being with her. "I suppose I do," he said, rubbing his eyes. "But there's always something to fix, something to improve." Lyra stepped into the room, not quite close, but close enough that he could feel the quiet energy between them. She walked over to his workbench and leaned over, her curiosity evident as she examined the tools and blueprints scattered across the table. "I've been thinking," she said, her tone thoughtful, "about what you said before, about how you weren't sure if you were ready for closeness." Eli felt a knot tighten in his chest. He remembered that conversation. He had been so unsure, so guarded, afraid to let anyone in, but Lyra's presence had a way of breaking down his walls piece by piece, and now he wasn't sure where those walls had gone. "I've been thinking about it too," he admitted, his voice quieter now. "I've been so focused on my need for space that I didn't realize how much I was pushing away." Lyra turned to him, her eyes searching his face. "You don't have to be afraid of closeness, Eli. It's not a weakness. It's a way of sharing, of understanding each other without words." Eli took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. He wasn't used to this kind of honesty, this kind of openness. But there was something about Lyra that made him want to be vulnerable, something that made him feel safe. "I don't know what it is about you," Eli said, his voice soft. "But every time I'm near you, I feel different. Like I can't keep fighting this connection between us. I don't know if I'm ready for everything, but I don't want to push you away anymore." Lyra smiled, her expression gentle and understanding. She stepped closer, this time not waiting for him to move, but allowing the space between them to close naturally. There was no rush, no urgency in her movements. She simply stood there, close enough that Eli could feel the warmth of her presence, without it being overwhelming. "You don't have to be ready for everything all at once," Lyra said, her voice steady and calm. "We don't need to rush this. We're already taking it one step at a time, aren't we?" Eli nodded, feeling a wave of relief wash over him. He didn't need to have all the answers right now. He didn't need to figure out everything at once. All he had to do was be present, to take each moment with Lyra as it came. For the first time, Eli realized that maybe this was what he had been searching for all along. Not just space, but connection. Not just solitude, but the quiet companionship of someone who understood him, who didn't need him to change but simply wanted to be with him. "I'm still scared," Eli confessed, his voice almost a